I never thought much about blood flow until mine started to fail me. It was on a crisp autumn morning when I realized something wasn't right. My feet felt different. Not just cold. I've lived through 78 winters in Minnesota. Cold is an old friend. But strange. Like they weren't fully connected to me anymore. I was out with my golden retriever Rusty in the park where we've walked 1,000 times before. Usually I could manage our full loop without thinking twice. But that morning, my legs just wouldn't cooperate. Heavy, tight, like walking through wet cement. At first, I brushed it off. Just getting old, I told myself. That's what we do when we're in our 70s, isn't it? We blame everything on age. The gray hair, the forgetting where we put our glasses, the way our knees protest when we stand up too quickly, and apparently the way our legs feel like they're not our own anymore. But deep down, I knew this was different. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. You know how they say denial is more than a river in Egypt? Well, in my case, it was an ocean, and I was swimming in it, pretending everything was just fine. Before all this started, I had a pretty good routine going. Retirement suited me just fine after 40 years of teaching high school history. My wife, Margaret, and I had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Breakfast together every morning. She'd have her tea, I'd have my coffee. I'd take Rusty for his morning walk while she worked in her garden. Afternoons, I'd volunteer at the local Veterans Center twice a week. Thursdays were game night with our friends from church. Weekends were for our grandkids. I was never an athlete, mind you, but I was active. I could keep up with my grandchildren, at least for a while. I could carry the groceries without thinking about it. Margaret and I would even go dancing at the community center once a month. Nothing fancy, just enough to make us feel young again for a few hours. I remember thinking my golden years were turning out exactly as I'd hoped. Peaceful, meaningful, surrounded by the people I love. And then my body started rebelling against me. It didn't happen all at once. That's the tricky thing about circulation problems. They creep up on you like a slow rising tide. You don't notice until the water's already up to your knees. The tingling came first. Just a slight pins and needles feeling in my feet after sitting too long. I'd wiggle my toes and it would go away. No big deal. Then my socks started leaving deep marks around my ankles at the end of the day. Margaret noticed before I did. "Your ankles look swollen," she said one evening as I was getting ready for bed. I looked down and realized she was right, but I just shrugged it off. Probably just had too much salt at lunch. The leg cramps started a few months later. They'd wake me up in the middle of the night, sharp, shooting pains that would have me jumping out of bed, desperately trying to stretch them out. Margaret would wake up and rub my calves until the spasms passed. "Maybe you should see Dr. Peterson," she'd suggest, concern etching lines around her eyes. But I'd just shake my head. "It's nothing. Just need to drink more water." But it wasn't nothing. The cramps got worse, and they weren't just happening at night anymore. Sometimes they'd hit while I was walking Rusty, forcing me to stop and wait for the pain to pass. Poor Rusty would look up at me, confused about why our walks were suddenly interrupted by these strange pauses. My feet were always cold, even in the summer. I started wearing socks to bed, something I'd never done before. Margaret noticed that too. "Your feet are like ice," she'd say, moving her own warm feet away from mine in bed. The color wasn't right either. My skin started looking different. Paler sometimes. Other times, there was a bluish tint, especially around my ankles. And I started seeing these dark spots appearing, like bruises that never quite healed. Then one day, as I was getting out of the shower, I noticed something strange on my right leg. Veins. But not normal veins. These were twisted, raised, and blue, like small ropes under my skin. "Varicose veins," Margaret said when I showed her. "My mother had them. You really should see a doctor, Harold." But I still wasn't ready to face it, not yet. It took falling down in the middle of the Veterans Center to finally get me to the doctor. I was carrying a box of old photographs we were organizing for an exhibition when my right leg simply gave out. No warning, no pain. It just wouldn't hold me anymore. The younger vets helped me up, of course, made jokes about me trying to get out of the real work, but the look in their eyes, they knew something wasn't right. And finally, so did I. Dr. Peterson didn't mince words after examining me. She never does. That's why I've trusted her for 15 years. You have peripheral vascular disease, Harold, she said, looking at me over her glasses. Your circulation is compromised, especially in your legs. The blood isn't flowing the way it should be. I just sat there, staring at my hands. Old hands. Hands that had turned the pages of history books for hundreds of students over the years. Hands that had held my children when they were born, and later, my grandchildren. Hands that were now spotted with age. It's fairly advanced, she continued. I'm surprised you haven't been in more pain. I had been. I just hadn't admitted it. What happens now? I asked, my voice sounding older than I'd ever heard it. We need to take this seriously, she said. Left untreated, poor circulation can lead to blood clots, which can be very dangerous. They can break loose and travel to your lungs or heart, causing serious problems. I thought about Margaret, about my grandkids, about Rusty waiting for his walks. I wasn't ready to leave them yet. Tell me what to do, I said. Dr. Peterson laid out a treatment plan that seemed both simple and overwhelming at the same time. Medication to improve blood flow. Compression stockings, not exactly the fashion statement I wanted to make at my age. Regular exercise, but the careful kind. And a complete overhaul of my diet. Your body needs specific nutrients to keep the blood flowing properly, she explained. Certain vitamins can make a significant difference. She mentioned 4 key vitamins that could help improve my circulation: B3, C, K, and E. Each had a specific role to play in keeping my blood vessels healthy and preventing clots from forming. The first few weeks were difficult. The compression stockings were a nightmare to get on, especially with my arthritic fingers. Margaret had to help me, which made me feel like a child again, not in a good way. The walking regimen was humbling. I was used to taking long walks with Rusty, but now I had to start with just 10 minutes at a time. 10 minutes. And even that left me with aching legs and shortness of breath. Rusty seemed confused by our new, abbreviated route. He'll adjust, Margaret said, watching me collapse into my armchair after a particularly difficult walk. And so will you. The dietary changes were perhaps the hardest part. Margaret and I had settled into our food habits over decades. Suddenly, we were having to learn a whole new way of eating. More leafy greens, Dr. Peterson had said. Broccoli, spinach, kale. They're rich in vitamin K, which helps prevent calcium buildup in your arteries. So Margaret started making green smoothies every morning. I'll be honest, the first time she put that green concoction in front of me, I thought she was trying to poison me. It looked like something that came out of our lawnmower. Just drink it, she said, not bothering to hide her amusement at my expression. It has kale, celery, green apple, ginger, and mint. All good for your circulation. I drank it. It wasn't as bad as it looked. And after a few days, I actually started to look forward to it. We added other foods too. Almonds for vitamin E, citrus fruits and kiwi for vitamin C, chicken breast and eggs for niacin, vitamin B3. You're turning me into a health nut, I grumbled one day as Margaret placed a plate of salmon in front of me. I'm turning you into a man who'll be around to meet his great-grandchildren, she replied calmly. That shut me up pretty quickly. The hardest part was being patient. I wanted to feel better right away. But healing doesn't work like that, especially not at my age. Progress came in small increments. A day when my legs didn't feel quite as heavy. A night when I didn't wake up with cramps. The first time I noticed I could put on my socks without having to stop and catch my breath. There were setbacks too. Days when the pain seemed worse than ever. A particularly bad afternoon when I tried to walk too far and had to call Margaret to come pick me up because I couldn't make it back home. You're pushing too hard, she said as she helped me into the car. Not hard enough, I countered. She just shook her head, in that way she has. The way that says she loves me but thinks I'm being an idiot. Maybe I was. About 3 months into my treatment, I had a revelation. It happened on a Saturday morning. I was sitting on our back porch watching Margaret in her garden. She was kneeling in the dirt, planting some new flowers, her gray hair pulled back in a ponytail. Rusty was lying nearby, keeping her company in the way only dogs can. I realized something in that moment. I'd been viewing my circulation problems as an enemy to be defeated, a battle to be won. But that approach wasn't working. I was fighting against my own body, trying to force it to heal faster than it could. What if instead I tried working with it? That shift in perspective changed everything. I stopped seeing my treatment as a punishment and started viewing it as a partnership. My body was doing the best it could with what it had. My job was to give it what it needed to heal. I began to appreciate the small victories. The day I could walk for 20 minutes without stopping. The morning I noticed the swelling in my ankles had gone down. The first time I put on my compression stockings without Margaret's help. I became more mindful of how food affected me. I noticed that on days when I drank my green smoothie and ate plenty of vitamin-rich foods, my legs felt lighter. When I skipped these healthy habits, the heaviness and tingling would return. I started keeping a journal, tracking my symptoms and my diet. It became a kind of science experiment. What foods made me feel better? What activities helped my circulation? What made things worse? "You're taking this more seriously than your taxes," Margaret commented one evening as she watched me updating my journal. "My taxes don't control whether I can walk Rusty tomorrow?" I replied. She smiled at that. "I'm proud of you, you know. Many men your age would have just given up." I thought about that a lot. Giving up had certainly crossed my mind in those early days. The effort seemed too great, the progress too slow. But what was the alternative? To sit in my chair and watch life pass me by? To never walk Rusty again, or dance with Margaret, or play with my grandkids? That wasn't living. That was just existing. And I'd spent too many years building this life to settle for merely existing in it now. It's been a year now since that morning in the park when I first noticed something wasn't right. My circulation isn't perfect. Dr. Peterson says it never will be at my age, but it's so much better than it was. I can walk Rusty for 30 minutes now without stopping. My legs don't feel like they're filled with cement anymore. The varicose veins are still there, but they don't seem to be getting worse, and the nighttime cramps have become rare visitors rather than nightly tormentors. Margaret says I look healthier. "There's color in your face again," she told me last week, and not that worrying blue color from before. I still drink my green smoothie every morning. I've actually grown to like it, though I'll deny saying that if Margaret ever asks. I eat my almonds and salmon and leafy greens without complaint. And I wear my compression stockings faithfully, even though they're still a pain to put on. These small daily choices, they add up. They're the difference between sitting on the sidelines and being in the game. Yesterday, I walked my youngest granddaughter to the park. She's 6, full of energy and questions. We stopped to feed the ducks, and as I watched her throw breadcrumbs into the water, laughing at the way the ducks squabbled over them, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. A year ago, I might not have been able to make that walk. I might have missed that moment. If you're facing circulation problems yourself, or any health challenge really, here's what I've learned. Your body wants to heal. It's designed to heal. Sometimes it just needs a little help from you. The right nutrients, the right movement, the right attitude, and patience. So much patience. Don't make the mistake I almost made. Don't dismiss those early warning signs as just getting old. Your body is talking to you. Listen to it, because there are duck ponds to visit, dogs to walk, gardens to tend, dances to dance, and a whole lot of life still to be lived. If you're experiencing any signs of poor circulation, tingling, cold feet, leg cramps, or changes in your skin color, please talk to your doctor. Don't wait until you fall down at the Veterans Center like I did. Your circulation is too important to ignore. Trust me on this one. I've walked the path, and now, thankfully, I can keep walking it for many more years to come.